This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the LG V20. As you might guess, it's going to replace the LG V10. We can't call this a review because this is a pre-production device that we have in-house. This is the wall of our house. We are in-house. We're not a trade show. We really have this, but it's not final firmware yet. So I'm going to give you a lot of impressions, but I'm not going to pass final judgment on a few things like battery life, ultimately even the camera. That could change a bit, but it's a sleek modernization of the V10. Gone is that rubbery, rugged back. You remember that? I thought that was kind of neat. It was different, at least. Anyway, we have a kind of more generic-looking phone, but a less bulky one, too. Snapdragon 820 inside, all sorts of top specs. The dual rear cameras over here, too, and high-quality audio. We're going to look at it now. So we have Android 7.0 running on here, yay, on the Snapdragon 820, which is the top dog CPU from Qualcomm right now. 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage on our model, and there's that micro SD card slot for expansion. You got a 5 megapixel front camera. The rear cameras, you have 8 and 16 megapixel cameras. The 8 megapixel is the ultra wide angle. The 16 megapixel is the more standard view camera on this. And we have really high quality audio. This is LG's multimedia phone all in all. Oh hey, and it has AV remote control, a feature that keeps disappearing from phones we know and once loved, like several Samsung models gone, but still here for LG. So first off, let's compare it to the LG V10. This phone right here with the rubbery, rugged kind of neat back. It was a removable back on this one too, but obviously a difference here. This one's a lot plainer. I hate to say it, but I think it's kind of boring and uninspired looking, but you know, looks are in the eye of the beholder. It is thinner because we had the bigger kind of, you know, rounding here going on, which was kind of ergonomic and all that sort of thing, but not necessary now. Component miniaturization means that these things can get thinner with every generation. And from the front view, LG cleaned things up nicely. Obviously smaller chin and smaller forehead areas over here. Component miniaturization, the updating of the logo. This one looks more like their fridge and air conditioner logo. This is a little bit more subtle and kind of nice under the black bezel around the display. Still 5.7-inch IPS QHD display. Similar brightness for the main display, but our little display up top here got brighter. The secondary display, as you can see, is zingier. That's pretty subtle over here, and compared to the icons there. And you still have the multiple functions there. You got quick access stuff, you got shortcuts to your apps, and you can customize that as you see fit. And if you actually don't want that to be on, say overnight, it's too bright and noisy, you can actually turn that off completely if you want. Gone is the shiny chrome on the side, and you got something that's much more subtle here. But one thing that I really like, I mean, yes, this has a removable battery. That's a likable feature in itself, and the fact that it stays fairly slim considering, but removing a back on a phone is usually, you know, you're yanking, you're prying, you're wondering, am I going to rip the thing? This actually has like a quick release button. Ah, nice. So you push that button in and ta-da, comes right off. You can hear that actually is metal, whether it looks it or not to you. So that is nice. Putting it back on is a little bit more fiddly than that, but it grants access to the 3200 milliamp battery. We have the nano SIM card slot and a micro SD card slot stacked on top. Pretty traditional kind of stuff right there. So that's just a nice little touch. It's like LG says, hey, you know, we are the ones with the removable battery, so we're going to make it as good as you can get. And to get it back on, you just squeeze a little bit and it goes back on. Not too hard, really. There we are. All on again. This does not support LG Friends like the LG G5 that had little friends that could poke into its butt area, so to speak. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. LG Friends just weren't the best envisioned kind of way of accessorizing and expanding your phone. Moto did it much better with Moto mods. Though funny, our pre-release model right here does actually have an LG Friends app pre-installed. So there's our LG Friends Manager. And while we're looking at this, you can see the user interface, typical LG UI. It gets, I guess, a little bit lighter. I'd still like even less of it. I'm not super fond of having the next home screen be all of my app icons, the app drawer replacement, that sort of thing. It's not the end of the world. And if you swipe down to see all of your settings here, you've got plenty to choose from, and you've got still the old-fashioned page settings like we used to see on LG displays and the Samsung Galaxy higher end series. And Samsung kind of tidied things up and went with something that looks more like the single-page Android, and I'd like to see LG actually do the same to make this a little less complicated. They still do have some handy software on here, though. They've got their right on the screen capture utility, for example, that I like a lot, and the quick note-taking app, which even though this doesn't support a pen, that's still a handy feature to have. It's pretty responsive. Again, I want to wait until this is finalized firmware before we thoroughly analyze that, but so far it's working quite sprightly. As ever, LG's power button is on the back. It's an actual clicky power button that you don't have to click it to turn on the phone. The fingerprint scanner has improved. I'm still not a huge fan of having it on the back because you kind of have to look sometimes and make sure your finger's centered on it, but it's very quick and very effective. Boom, just like that, I've unlocked it. So yeah, it works pretty well as long as you're okay with its location. And even though you see there's a little bevel here and all that sort of thing, it's not the most tactile thing in the world, so you might discover you have to go, okay, I found it now. The camera is here. This is basically the same arrangement as on the LG G5. So you have dual cameras over here, 16 megapixel camera and an 8 megapixel camera. And you can use them separately. One is a standard field of view, which is pretty wide for your average camera phone, equivalent to like 24 to 28 millimeters in DSLR photography, and we have one that has a 135-degree field of view, super wide. Now, I think they might have done better if they had done Apple's approach, honestly, where you have one that is actually a little bit more telephoto, or what we call close to a normal lens, because a lot of the time, you want to avoid having to crop your images and then lose some detail or use digital zoom, that sort of thing. I think more often that would be better. Also, portraits are more flattering with a modest to full telephoto view and not ultra wide. So here we have ultra wide, and it's pretty easy to switch back and forth right there. So we have a crazy, almost fisheye distortion going on because it's so wide, and we can switch to the kind of more normal view right there. It's quite a difference, isn't it? So if you're going to the Grand Canyon, this is the ultimate thing right here. Otherwise, I haven't found a whole lot of use for the wideness kind of feature. Other than that, it's LG G5 all over again in terms of features. You've got manual control. You've got all sorts of modes here going on, film effects. It's pretty nice stuff, actually. And I think the thing that is most compelling here isn't the photography as much as it's the videography. 4K video with 24-bit lossless audio, high-quality audio there. It's pretty impressive stuff. You've got 3 microphones on board. You have both optical image stabilization and a new software stabilization algorithm that helps steady your footage, and it does quite a good job. Now again, this is pre-release, and the photos that I've taken so far haven't impressed me as much as the videos have, and I know that LG is going to work on some final firmware to take this up to the next level, but I suspect that the still camera is still not going to be as good as, say, the Samsung Galaxy S7 and probably the iPhone 7 too. Since the phone's all about audio quality, it comes with an HD audio recorder here, lossless audio recording, and it's pretty impressive stuff inside. And I've listened with some good headphones, and it sounds nice. Yes, I think it's outdone the HTC 10. You got a high-quality ESS Sabre ES9218 DAC, for those of you who know what that means. That's 32-bit stereo quad DACs with high-power headphone amplifiers, so you can drive high-impedance, high-end earphones. And LG shipped us these B&O H3 earbuds, pretty expensive earbuds, and I have to say the phone sounded quite nice with them. And we're testing them also with higher end over-the-ear models like the Master and Dynamic headphones and others too. So there it is, the LG V20. It's a pretty nice phone. It's a pretty huge phone. We don't know yet when it's going to be available or how much it's going to cost, but the thing is, it's probably going to be flagship price. It's a flagship phone, so this is not going to be, a cheap phone by any means. And most likely it's going to be on all major carriers. And it has some nice touches that suddenly we're appreciating a lot more, like the removable battery, right? Ooh, poor Samsung Galaxy Note 7. You got good performance here. You got Android 7 Nougat, the first phone supposedly that's going to hit the streets pre-shipping with that, as opposed to, yes, you people with the Nexus 6P and me with the Nexus 6P. We could download it, install it, but we're talking about brand new phones that come with it pre-installed. So there's a lot to like here. It's not, in my opinion, the prettiest thing we've ever seen, but it's pretty good. And I think it's, It's got some things on the LG G5, including losing the friends. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.